Hi, welcome back to Paying Attention. This is DeLon, your one-stop hub for bodybuilding into the new age. Today I'm going to be talking about some fundamentals of things that you're going to have to keep in mind, or that you might want to keep in mind after, if you do decide to end a phase of your bulking cycle. And so, a lot of things I've noticed, and I'm sure other people come to these crossroads as well, is when do you actually stop a bulk, and how do you know when a good time to do so is appropriate? And so, a lot of people just eyeball it, which is one way to do it. I find that it's kind of subjective, and it doesn't really, because when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's one point in time, and so you're not really getting a holistic representation of what your body is doing over the course of any given period of time. So it's very subjective, and so yeah, some of the common struggles I've noticed, at least with myself, is you can be a little bit hard on yourself if your calories are somewhat heavy and you put on a little bit too much fat one week, and so it just comes down to what you're comfortable with and what your end goal actually is. I found for myself that what I like to do is I like to use those tape measures, and those are actually pretty helpful because one, they lock into place around your arm, so you don't really have to take like a cloth tape measure and go around your arm or anything like that. Just like snaps into place, and you can read the number on it. And so it takes the guesswork and the subjectivity out of actually measuring what your progress is from week to week, and you can get like a hard number too of what the size of your muscle is. So if you have one that's asymmetrically bigger than the other one, you can work that muscle group or appendage out, what have you, a little extra at the gym that week. But other things to keep in mind when you're using the tape measure to measure your arm is the time of day when you're actually measuring. Is it after the gym? Is it in the morning? That's going to play a big role in what the muscle plasma and water retention actually are in the muscle, and if it's deprived of glycogen or carbohydrates, and you just spent all your energy at the gym, or you're dripping in sweat and the tape measures slipping off. Those are all things to keep in mind, but it's still better than just tucking in and grinning in the mirror. But another influencing factor that's going to weigh heavily onto how you manage your diet during your cut is what kind of diet are you currently on. And so if you're on a carb-centric diet, you're going to want to have to scale back your fats. I think a lot of people think that as soon as they cut, they need to just dial everything back. And while that is somewhat true, as you do have to cut your calories back, you don't want to neglect your primary source of energy. So if you're getting that from carbohydrates, then you're going to want to keep getting that from carbohydrates. If you're on a ketogenic diet, then you're going to be wanting to get your energy from fats and protein. But yeah, other than that, as far as cardio goes, I think I've talked about it in some other videos briefly, but I think a lot of people, I've got an article about it too if you're into that. But a lot of people fall into the trap of um, obsessively trying to burn weight off at the gym, um, and they get caught in this vicious cycle. I know it's kind of like an old trope, but it's like the New Year resolutioner who, put on a few pounds in the holiday and just keeps on hammering at the treadmill. And so the reason why I say that it's not bad to do cardio, but the reason I say that people over focus on cardio is because one, they don't, going back to the whole visual aesthetic thing, I don't think they take into consideration weight fluctuations day to day, as far as water retention goes, and how much actually goes into ATP fermentation when you're working out on a glycogen centric or carb centric diet that's heavily based on glucose, which is the largest nutrient molecule your body uses. And so I don't think they take that into consideration, that using the tricarboxylic acid cycle and its fermentation aspect is going to far deplete your glycogen deposits more than beta oxidation is in the mitochondria. So, yeah, I think people factor that in, and so they'll go do a workout, and then after they just hopefully depleted those glycogen stores, we'll do like an hour on the treadmill, and I'm just being using hyperbole here. I don't know what people's cardio regimens actually are, but yeah, you're gonna put your body into a state of gluconeogenesis if you do that, which is fine if you're just looking for weight loss, but the problem with putting your body into gluconeogenesis prematurely is it's going to start eating away at that muscle that you're trying to build, and if you don't supplement it after you just worked out, what you're doing is you're just breaking up that myofibrillar muscle strands and sacromeres even more than you should have already, because they should be getting repaired at that point. But yeah, going back to the whole fermentation and beta oxidation, I think for one ATP molecule you get like 32 energy molecules for fermentation versus for oxidation versus ATP fermentation only uses 2, so it's more intensive in that sense. Other common body composition concerns that I have noticed with myself, and I'm sure other people have too as well, at least from talking to them at the gym and just other cohorts, is basically back to what I just said is, I don't want to go catabolic and lose their muscle, and so what they end up doing is they either prolong their bulk too long to where it's almost like you're walking backwards. I mean, you essentially are if you're doing a cut, because you're going to lose muscle either way. But if you go too far over and you have a lot of ectopic fat that you need to burn off. Um, you're also going to lose a lot of muscle while you're doing that. So um, there's a couple ways to limit catabolism, and one of them is reducing autophagy. And by reducing autophagy, what you're essentially doing is you're inhibiting the lysosomal action of your cells. And so what that does is it prevents them from eating up smaller cells, or cells that they think are defective in a turnover sense. So then, and the way you can do or prevent autophagy is by supplementing isoleucine. And what that does is it inhibits the mTOR, which is the mammalian rapamycin of mammalian torrent of rapamycin. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's a direct process to lysosomal autophagy. So the way you inhibit mTOR is with amino acids, and isoleucine happens to be one of the best inhibitors for autophagy, other than tryptophan. But yeah, so that's one thing to do. So if you don't know what the lysosome is, it's basically the waste disposal of your cells, not power plant, but disposal center. And so when things are getting like antigens or foreign bacteria enter your body through capillary action, or they slip through the portal, vein, and your liver doesn't catch it, or something that's there that doesn't belong there. Basically, what happens is they get transported by vacuoles or vesicles to the lysosome through vascular bodies to the lysosome, and it just kind of like pours acid into it and regurgitates it out. And so you don't want that happening because it's catabolic. And so isoleucine is going to be definitely your best friend. As far as over-the-counter supplements go, you can supplement that further with exogenous hormones, such as anabolic steroids or growth hormone, because they have they also inhibit mTOR as well, so you don't have to really focus on that. And so that's just for the lysosomal action. Other ways I did mention glycolysis or glycogenolysis, which is just basically intermittent fasting. And so what you're doing there is you're changing your body's postprandial state to a fasting state, which is going to secrete more glucagon from your liver's alpha islets versus when you're in a fed state, your body is going to secrete insulin from your beta islets out of your liver. And so the downstream reactions of that from your pancreas to your liver are going to have different mechanisms to which they will affect one, your TCA cycle, and then two, how your body's metabolizing molecules. So in glycogenolysis or intermittent fasting, what you're doing is you're turning off its faucet for glycolysis, and so now it's using those glycogen stores via glycogen synthase and glycogen phosphorylase, and it's converting those to gluco-1-phosphate, and then it's converting that to glucose, and it's either going to go exit the cell via exocytosis, or it's going to be converted into pyruvate via glycolysis if it were to stay in the cell. There are some other ways it can be stored. It can be stored by glucose phosphatase and endoplasm, or glucose-1-phosphate would store it, and then glucose phosphorylase would actually phosphorize it back, or phosphorylate it back into glucose so that it could leave the cell and go back into your bloodstream. But back to glycolysis, or glycogenolysis, I should say. It is basically a short-term solution to taking your body out of that feed cycle so that you can take it out of those esterified fatty acid pathways, so that your body's not in a insulin heavy state. And by doing that and fasting, you're basically not forcing, but you're enabling your body to use one, those stores, and then after it uses those stores, it's going to go to gluconeogenesis, which is where things get interesting, and you basically are using lactate and other molecular sources to fuel your body's glucose processes as they are converted from different phosphoryl pyruvates and PEPCKs that I'll go into in another video. But I think I've already been talking too long, and so the basic synopsis of this is, if you're in a bulking phase and you don't know if you should stop or not, a good technique to take an objective viewpoint for that is a tape measure, so you can get an accurate reading of where your muscles are at. And you can also do visuals as well for the old pinch test to see if you got a little too much around the waist, and then get that leucine. A lot of it's already built into if you're already taking protein powder, a lot of it's already going to be in your protein powder, so you won't have to supplement that much. And then just stay tuned for the next video. I'll go into a little more details on glycolysis and other fasting mechanisms, and what you can use with your biology to actually use all those molecules without having them converted into fat. This is DeLon with Pain Intention, and I'll see you in the next video.